Good evening, everyone. I'm Reverend David W. Green Sr., Senior Pastor here at Purpose of Life Ministries. I want to welcome each and every one of you here tonight for this important conversation. We at Purpose of Life try to be that bridge to help with the healing and the hope and harmony of our community. So we're excited about this town hall that seeks to bridge the gap in terms of communication between law enforcement and the community. We're excited to be doing this in partnership with the Northwest CRDC as well as the concerned clergy. We have with us tonight Dr. Michael Christie, who's going to be facilitating this. But before we get to him, what we want to have is Dr. Richard Curry is going to come and kind of level set us on tonight. And before he comes, just a couple of housekeeping items that might be important. Our restrooms are right out this door. Turn to your left, and they will be the second and third door to the right. And we are gathering tonight not as adversaries, but as neighbors and colleagues and friends. We're happy to have all of our law enforcement that are with us. We see Assistant Chief Wiley just walked in, so we're glad to have him with us, as well as our Northwest Commander, Lorenzo Lewis, for sharing with us. So we're going to ask Dr. Curry if he will come at this time and kind of level set for us what we can expect on tonight before hearing from Dr. Christie. Dr. Curry.
Well, good evening. We're certainly grateful and happy to be here tonight. It's good to see all your faces in the place. And we come today to solidify. We come today to talk about some things, and we come today. Now, let me just say this: we won't get finished tonight. We're not going to solve any great problems today, but we do want to dialogue. All right. So, housekeeping. First of all, everybody should have a 3x5 card. Everybody should have a 3x5 card. If you have questions along the way, all right, because we're going to be running on a strict schedule. If you have questions, please write them on your 3x5 card, and when we do the Q&A, we will address your questions. All right, is that all right? Great. And so we're grateful. We want to be mindful of your time, and certainly Dr. Christie has come a long way, and I want us to hear him out. Now, here's what I want to say, and we'll go ahead and get started. All of us can say in here, whether we're on what side of the fence we're on, that we have a violence problem in our city. Can we all say that? All right. I imagine all of us that are in here today are interested in curtailing that or solving the violence problem. And this is what this is about today. This is what it's about today. Dr. Christie is going to come. I believe Reverend Alexander is going to introduce him, and I want to get out of the way again so that we can leeway to Dr. Christie so he can have his time.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Curry. I also want to thank everyone for coming and being with us on tonight, as we understand that in order for us to grow as a community, we have to have difficult conversations. A lot of that is going to be covered on tonight. How do we have those conversations? And making it where even if we don't agree, we can at least dialogue. We can communicate. We can communicate in a way where, we don't have to walk away from that communication and saying we're not going to come back to the table again. This is about building bridges. And I just want to say on behalf of the Northwest CRDC, in which I'm the co-chair, one of the co-chairs, that we have an opportunity where we can work with the Northwest District and Commander Lewis and all of his staff. And just so you know, if you're not if you don't reside here in the Northwest District, there are 6 districts. In every district, there is a CRDC. So you feel free to get engaged where you reside. It's very important that the community not only has the ear of law enforcement, but law enforcement has the ear of the community. So as we are getting prepared for Dr. Christie, I also want to let everyone know there's a pamphlet there that gives information on what the Northwest CRDC is about, gives some of the things that we've done over the years. It also has contact information on the back, so if you want to send an email or if you got any questions, whether it's in regards to what we do on tonight or just anything in general, you can do that. Then also, we've got a couple of handouts that are were on your way in that Dr. Christie is going to be referring to as we go through our dialogue on tonight. So I want to make sure if you did not get a chance to grab those handouts, go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and do that now. And then once again, he'll be referring to those, or raise your hand. We've got our greeters. They'll go ahead and bring them over to you. Thank you so much. Our Purpose of Life Hospitality Ministry. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give a little bit of background on our facilitator tonight, and it's Chaplain Michael G. Christie. D-Man is a Christian minister and a chaplaincy supervisor with the Connecticut Department of Corrections. He's also a certified mindfulness meditation teacher who offers coaching and training to individuals, nonprofits, and corporations on various topics, including race relations, stress resilience, conflict resolution, and nonviolent communication. I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot about that on tonight, nonviolent communication. He is currently developing a training program with law enforcement to improve community relations. Dr. Christie shares his experiences and insights as a corrections chaplain, a Christian minister, and a mindfulness teacher. Can we go ahead and just give him a round right now? Dr. Christie, we're in your hands.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Alexander, Dr. Curry, Dr. Green, and to all of you. It's my first time in Indianapolis, and so I am eating your food and driving around, getting to know everybody and everything, and I'm happy to be here. Assistant Chief Wally, we spoke on the phone. Good to see you. It's my intention that we have a conversation about how we might approach, how we communicate with each other and with law enforcement in a way that might create a space for more productive dialogue. A little bit about my background has been mentioned. I'm a chaplain I'm a chaplain supervisor at the prison in the Department of Correction in Connecticut. And one of the things that got me on this journey was sitting in the prison and as a pastor, preaching and teaching young men primarily, and seeing them go out and come back. And of course, you know, as a preacher, you thought you did a good job, and they all seemed to have got it together when they were there. And the question was, why were they coming back? Of course, there's lots of reasons for them to come back. But I had to wrestle with my own self to ask this question. It's not the gospel that failed, so what failed? And I had a profound revelation to realize that all of the men coming through, not only the inmates, so to speak, but the staff, had a lot of trauma. And as black and brown people, we have had a lot of trauma. Generational trauma, intergenerational trauma, structural trauma. And until we really start to speak to those things are just going to kind of keep on going the way they've been going. The reason why that matters is dealing with trauma and getting trained in trauma forced me to do a little stuff on neuroscience, like what makes the mind think? Why do we end up where we're ending up? And I'm going to go through a little bit of that today, and then I'm going to jump into nonviolent communication. I personally don't like the title, nonviolent communication. And when I first heard it, I refused to take the course. I'm certified now. I think I'm one of 3 black men in the country certified in nonviolent communication. I didn't like it because I was like, I'm not violent. I don't need to take this course. But it's really deeper than that. It has much more to do with a lot of what we say as believers, empathy and compassion. How do you cultivate that as a real part of your being? And how can you listen to others in a way, even when you disagree with them? How can I listen to them without judging, blaming, pointing the finger? Because the minute I start to blame you, what do? That's the question for the audience. You get defensive. And I think we forget that we're dealing with human beings, even when it comes to the police community relation. When they say stuff we don't like, we get defensive. And when we say stuff they don't like, they get defensive. And so we get caught in being defensive, and the thing that matters to us doesn't get addressed because we're caught up in our feelings. And we're caught up in being defensive. There is a way, there are tools for us to be able to hold each other accountable and move beyond our feeling a certain kind of way because of how somebody's responding of what was being said to us. So here's a quick little, I like to call it a quiz, but maybe it's not really a quiz. Can you, anybody in the audience, I would like you to point to your mind. Where's your brain, rather? Where do you say you got 2, 3, 4, 5 pointing? The rest of you disagree with that? Yeah. But what if I said to you, you were incorrect or partially right? What would your response be? Why would you be partially right? Say it again. That's partially right. Where else is the brain? That's a good question. So, how does your brain know anything? Information, but it's coming from somewhere. Where is it coming from? So when I touch a hot fire, nerves. Where are the nerves? Is it all in your brain? It's all in your body. Your brain is not just here. It's everywhere. The truth be told, 80% of the communication between your brain and your mind and your body and your brain comes from the body to the brain, not the reverse. I say that to say having some self-awareness about our bodies and what's happening in our bodies kind of matter. This speaks to the trauma piece that I was talking about. Dr. Dan Siegel is a neuroscientist, came up with an idea, a model that he uses for the brain. He uses the fist. And essentially he's saying, if you hold your fist, and this is a great tool to teach our children and anybody else that you are counseling. If this is the brain, then my fingers are what's called my prefrontal cortex. It's my thinking brain. It's a part of my brain that decipher things, that sift through clouds. It's a part of my brain that can think in the future. It's a part of my brain can say, you know what, I can let that go, or isn't that serious? That's the part of it. It's a part of the brain that regulates my nervous system, or at least helps to regulate my nervous system. The thumb is part of what's called your limbic system. Your limbic system is essentially where your fear center is, your amygdala. And anybody ever heard of that word, amygdala? Amygdala is a part of your brain, and its job is to scan the world to see if you're safe. The number one priority for human beings is safety. Emotional safety, physical safety. Everything we do, even with our spirituality, safety is number one. As a matter of fact, we're all going to heaven because what? We don't want to go to hell. We want to be safe, right? It's about safety. And so that part of our brain is constantly scanning the world. It's constantly scanning your environment to see whether or not you're safe. The more trauma, this is why trauma matters, the more trauma that's in your background, the bigger that part of the brain gets. The more triggered it gets, the easier it is to get triggered. And so people, instead of being calm and regulated, we flip our lids, so to speak. That means your thinking brain literally become disconnected from your fear brain, your fight-flight brain. You've heard about the whole fight-flight response, right? So that's kind of what's happening. So when you have a young man or a woman or a teenager that's acting up, there's a good chance they'll flip their lids. And if you've probably heard it, you've probably done it yourself, where you've done something and later on, after you calm down, you regretted what you did. Because when you were triggered, you don't care about consequences. You're trying to, in your mind is telling you, be safe by any means necessary. Right? Harming somebody else, whatever, they don't think about. You think about that stuff when this happens. Right? So there's no way for us to really start to have real serious transformative dialogue with each other without having some kind of a trauma-informed lens to the conversation that we're having. So I gave you that little background because it's going to matter in a minute. So when it comes to conversation with each other, we're talking, and we see or hear something we don't like, and we get triggered. Now I'm no longer listening to you. Now you become what MVC would call an enemy. You become I have you as an enemy image. So that doesn't mean I necessarily want to cut your head off, because I can have an enemy image of my spouse. When I don't like you, my body says, you're not for me, you're against me. You're not on my side. When you have an enemy image, if you're in an enemy image space, it's hard to dialogue with the person. It's hard to trust the person and have conversation with the person. So currently, in terms of across the state, across the country, in terms of the police-community relation, there's an enemy image on both sides. We don't trust them and they don't trust us. But we're missing what really matters, and so we get nowhere because we're both stuck seeing the other one as the enemy. This doesn't dismiss that there's racism and other kind of stuff that's happening. This doesn't dismiss that there are cops that do bad things and that there are community members that do bad things. But we have to find a way of having that common cause, that common goal, that common needs. Here's where NVC is helpful. NVC stands on 4 principles. It is having an observation without interpretation, and you have a paper that speaks to that. The first principle, can I either in reflecting on something that went bad or thinking about a conversation that I'm going to enter, this is great tools for having difficult conversation with folks. Either a difficult conversation you that didn't go so good or one that you're planning to have, right? Can I separate my observation from my interpretation? What does that mean? Most of us, we're wired as human beings. When we see, hear, feel something, we interpret it. We are meaning-making people. So I begin to tell myself a story when I see or hear something, good or bad. That story impacts how I move forward. That story impacts if I become defensive, if I'm open to hear the other side. That story depends on how I react and respond. When I'm able to separate my observation from my interpretation, at least to acknowledge that I'm interpreting in a certain way, it helps to regulate your nervous system so you're not in full fight-flight mode, ready to charge. NVC also has another principle. It says that all of us human beings, we have similar goals, it's universal needs. The need to be safe, the need to be loved, the need to be seen, the need to be heard. There's a list that you have of different needs that we all share as human beings. Regardless of your color, regardless of your role, we all share it. We all want to be loved, we all want to be safe. And oftentimes the relationship between police and community are very similar goals. Right? Now, there are layers of other things that are happening historically. So we know that, and we're not trying to dismiss that. But in terms of us building a better bridge, I think sometimes we're just focused on the wrong or misplaced our energy in terms of building the bridge. If we're honest, we're not really trying to build a bridge, because a bridge requires collaboration. A bridge requires that there's two parties at the table. So I don't know what your situation is, but if one party is not fully at the table, you're not building a bridge. Right? Both parties have to come together and say, okay, we want things to be better. And so oftentimes the conflict, not just with organizations, but with individuals, our conflict arises because we have a different in strategy. We might have the same goal and the same need, safety, for example, but we have different strategies about how we want safety to get done. And instead of focusing on the need of safety, we fight over that we have different strategies. You want to do it this way, and I want to do it this way. And so everything falls apart because of our need to win and defend our strategy, not the need to stay connected to what really matters, what the need is. Next thing on the list is our feelings. All of us got feelings, if we want to admit it or not. And if we're honest, America has really, the reason I brought up the body earlier, Western culture has taught us to dismiss our feelings. As a matter of fact, we were raised, many of us, not to feel stuff. You want something to cry about? Have you ever heard that? Anybody here ever heard that? You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry, make you. That's like, don't cry. Crying, and then we label boys with all kind of names. You crying? Can I be real here? You a sissy? Excuse my language. Why are you crying? We throw names at them and make them feel bad for having feelings. So I have a friend, and he's from Nigeria. He had this really wonderful term that I like. He says, he was taking one of my classes on NBC. He says, I just got language for what I was feeling when I was growing up. He said, I just realized that I was emotionally constipated. And I said, you're right. Most of us are emotionally constipated. And primarily from our culture, where from the beginning, from the plantation till now, we had to hide our feelings, because your feelings can get you in trouble, either with your parents or with the community. So we're very disconnected from our feelings, which means we're disconnected from our bodies. And let me share something with you. Your body knows before your brain knows, because most of the communication is coming from your body. Most of what you're feeling is coming from your body. If we pay more attention to what we're feeling and at least acknowledge it, you begin to regulate your nervous system. When you don't, when you ignore it, and just what we try to do, press through it, and sometimes as faith believer, we try to spiritualize the stuff and cover it up and just run on, and that's still in your body, still occupying your mind. Because Pastor, I'm like, why are folks coming to church for years and hardly have matured any? It's because we're not dealing with some of the other stuff. Some of the weeds that are in our spiritual gardens we need to attend to. Some of those traumas. So we need to learn how to feel, I think. This is why. Every feeling is connected to a need. That's the next thing on this list. Those universal needs that I was talking about. Every feeling is connected. You're feeling something because you have a need that you've met or a need that wasn't met. You're frustrated with your spouse. I was going to ask for an example, but I probably won't do that. You're frustrated because he or she didn't do something that you wanted done. And so the need wasn't met, so now you're irritated. And then you go on, if you were as bad as I was, you would do thank God for Jesus, I'm delivered. You do what I did, and I would just ignore my spouse. I was mad, and I ain't talking. And I was very good at it. It was a spiritual gift. We could see who can not talk the longest, and I would always win because I was very good at it. But it was really spiritual immaturity to not speak. and to use that strategy as a way of communicating, because I didn't know how to say what I was feeling and what I needed. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know how to say, hey, you know what? You said that, it hurt my feelings. I just wanted some more support from you. I didn't know how to put those together. So what I did was I just ignored her, because that's what I was very good at. And that's one strategy, right? Some folks get angry, right? And throw stuff around or yell and scream at our spouse. That's the strategy we use. And it's really saying, I don't know how to be vulnerable with you. And I don't know how to articulate what I'm feeling, because I don't have any access to my feelings. I'm afraid of the things to be. The only thing I know to have access to is anger, like most of us do. But when you start to have access to your feelings, which God gave you, one, again, it helps us to do this, to calm ourselves down a little bit, because your soul appreciates when you know what's going on inside of you. When you can clearly articulate what it is that you're feeling, and not just be angry when it's not really anger, it's sadness. You're really sad about something that was done. But you don't know how to be sad, so you just get mad. Or you act like you're mad, but you're still really sad. And the more we are able to kind of connect with that, is the more we're able to shift that. All of this mean that sense of awareness in ourselves gives us the capacity to hear someone else that's dysregulated, to hear someone else that is responding out of their own trauma, their own struggles, their own sense of not being able to connect with their feelings. Then I mentioned the universal needs, to just kind of be having clarity about what that is, that we can speak to it, and we can ask our spouse, the police, and vice versa. Well, this is what I need. This is what we need. And you're doing all of this without this very important thing, without blaming and without shaming and without judging. Because whenever you get blamed or shamed or judged, you have a predictable response. You become defensive, all of us. That's our nature as human beings. So in terms of a strategy to bridge and move forward, blaming and shaming, even though I might feel blame and shame inside me, how I communicate what I need doesn't have to be connected to blame and shame, because it's counterproductive to what I want. It's counterproductive. Let me share an example. Maybe I can get some audience participation in this one. So a couple wants to go, they wants to, know what, you've been working long hours, I've been working long hours, we're missing each other, the children are there, we never see each other. I want to spend some time with you, the wife says to the husband. The husband says, I agree, we should spend some more time. Okay, what should we do? Give me some ideas of what y'all would do to go spend time with each other. Set a date, but what are you going to do? I got to set a date and do something. What am I doing? Ask her what I want. All right, I'm going to role play with you. And I said, whatever you want to do, honey, you pick something. What are you picking? You ain't answering. Like, You have a plan. You have to plan the date. Okay, and you plan the date, and what are you doing? Getting something to eat. Okay, someone else. What are you doing? What do you want to do? Go to the movies. This is perfect. Let's assume I ain't taking your wife and giving her away or nothing. That this is the conversation. She wants to go to the movies, and you want to go to dinner. You kind of locked in because you got big plans. You got this special restaurant you're going to go to. You've already talked to the waiters about coming in and lighting candles and sprinkling flower petals and all this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And she just, I just want to go to the movies. I want to go see a romantic, one of those, see, she's bowing her head like, yep. One of them Hallmark movies, them lovey-dovey movies. And you go, I don't want to see that. Unless I have all this big plan for you to go to dinner. But honey, I don't want to go to dinner. We do dinner all the time. Let's go to a movies. You never go to this Hallmark movies with me. Yeah, but I don't like Hallmark movies. I want to go to dinner. And at the end of the day, you both like this. You're mad, back turned to each other, sleep in a different bedroom because you got into a big fight over what to do, right? What was the need? Yeah, remember what the need was? To spend time together. We completely miss, that's what we're trying to do, and we're fighting over the strategy about how to spend time together. And we're so invested, so caught up, so attached to the strategy. You ain't trying to let it go. Because to you, losing the strategy is losing. Look, she said, mm-hmm. But it isn't. Being attached to the strategy is losing. The goal is to spend time together. That's the need, connection, to be connected. I mean, that principle goes everywhere. It goes with our spouse, with your children, with your clergy, with your congregation, with law enforcement and community. We miss what the need is. And sometimes we're not clear ourselves what the need is because the need is kind of hidden from us. When we're a cloud in the defense of a strategy, you'll always miss what matters, what the need is. So the invitation is to get clear on what the needs are, because most likely there are similar needs. And then let the need become the thing you try to solve, and not have all kind of strategy. Be open and say, okay, let's put as many strategies on the table that can get there. And be open to that. Be non-judgmental about what strategies. It could sound crazy to you. Somebody could put, well, let's go bungee jumping and have dinner while we're going down. I mean, anything. Don't stuck on, we ain't doing that. Put it on the table. Invite it, because this is the other piece. A big need for human beings, for all of us, is to be seen and to be heard. The minute I don't feel like I'm seen or heard by you, you're now my enemy. Whether you're a spouse or employee or a parent, whatever it is. And so how can you get someone to feel heard and seen? These 4 principles that you just saw. Acknowledge their feelings. Hey, I see you're frustrated or angry or sad about something. I imagine you wanted to go to the movies, right? Acknowledge it before you run on to something else. Here's another principle that is important for us. Before you correct, before you teach, before you advise or counsel people, first connect with them. Connect before you correct. Which means if my child is acting up and doing something, instead of going over to them and reprimanding them and scolding them and correcting them for what they're doing, first connect with them. Say, I noticed you did X, Y, Z. I was curious as to why. Because they have a reasons in their own head. And don't judge the reason, even though you might disagree with it, because that's how you hear them out. Right? So, and I know this isn't black parenting. This is like, I might get stoned for saying stuff like this, because we do the belt and throw the shoes. Well, at least some of us grew up like that. These young folks may not know nothing about that. But the point is to connect with them first. Connect with what their feelings and what you think their needs are, why they did it. And then give your reasons why you thought it was a bad idea. But before you teach and correct and chastise, connect with people. That happens for your bridge with law enforcement. Before you, and vice versa. This is a two-way street. I'm not speaking to that one party ought to do this. This is responsibility of both sides, whatever the relationship is. If they're talking to me, they need to connect. They need to find out, okay, what's happening? What's the feeling of the community? What's the need of the community? And if it's like we don't feel heard, to acknowledge that. Brushing by it is only going to go against. If you're sincere about connecting and bridging, then that's just working against you to connect and bridge. And in this particular instance regarding bridging with law enforcement, there's a power dynamic, right? That the law enforcement has more power. They have to carry that and weigh that. And sometimes I don't think, I'm in a unique position because I work in the Department of Corrections, so I get to see both sides. And I'm a pastor, right? I get to see the side of the community, and I'm also in prison and get to see that side and get to hear the stories of folks that are incarcerated and what they do and how they try to manipulate things and all this kind of stuff. And so we have to be willing to hear both sides clearly before we judge and blame. And you might have good reasons to judge and blame after you hear what they have to say, but at least first try to get clarity and connect with what you hear, on both sides. I want to do this little exercise, if you'll be willing. The paper that you have, I want you to think of, and at least two of you have gone through this today already. I want you to think of a situation. It could be personally. Let's do personal, because that matters to you. Because what I'm sharing with you is not just for organization. It's for your family. It's for you as well. It's for your own spiritual growth, right? Because one of the things that got me drawn to this whole NVC processes was, I struggled with Jesus saying, love your enemies. I don't know about you, but I'm like, I didn't know how to do that. I said, I don't know how to do that. And if we're honest with ourselves, as a pastor, I realize we teach about love, pastor, but most folks don't know how to love. We don't know how to love people. We throw the word around, but we don't know how to love. How do I do that? We know how to love people we with sometimes, right? Because even then we don't love them. So how can I love? This gave me some language and some tools to learn how to love. So for me now, learning how to love is being able to hear the other side, right? To pause when and I'm not always successful at this. Sometimes I flip my lid and I don't want to hear nothing, right? I default back to my no talk. Thank God that doesn't happen too much. But so love to me is pausing to really genuinely connect with the other person, where they are, with what's happening with them. Really try to understand what are they feeling, because that matters. Feelings are powerful. And what the needs are. To me, that's a powerful act of love. And I can draw closer to loving my enemy if I can do that. Because it doesn't mean showing empathy to the person, doesn't mean I'm in agreement with their behavior. It says I'm trying to understand their behavior. Because people do stuff for a reason. Sometimes out of your own fear. So like some of the behaviors you're seeing in the country is out of fear. And so, yes, I can just be mad about it, or I can really try to understand it if I want to connect and relate and navigate through the space with some wisdom. And so think of a situation, personal or at work, with your children, with your spouse, that you either wish you could do over or didn't go well. The person irritated you, annoyed you, frustrated you. You got it? You're not gonna tell me, by the way. So this is an exercise that you're gonna do. So you're gonna need pen and paper. You're gonna need pen and paper. You can write a little squiggly on the side of one of these paper if you want. And then I want you to draw on the top of your, this part I would ask you to do, but if you don't have paper, you don't have to do it. The request would be on the top is to put a small note to yourself about what the situation is, right? Bobby left the garbage, didn't take the garbage out, and the garbage came and left, and I was annoyed. Or Susan left the plates in the sink. It's the third day in a row, and I was bothered. Yeah, something like that. And so on the paper you're writing a T, right? Like the benefit. What's the Ben Franklin thing that they used to do back in the day? pluses and minuses, but instead of plus and minus, you're going to put, on the left side, you're going to put feelings, and on the right side, you're going to put needs. And for this situation that you've just identified, use the paper you have, or you can do an exercise and try to write your feeling down without looking at the paper. Because remember, I told you most of us are spiritually constipated. We have very limited vocabulary for what we're feeling. Look at the paper and write down, what am I really feeling about the incident that occurred? That's on the left side. What do I feel about the incident that occurred? Whatever that incident was. I promise you, if you do that, it's going to give you some wisdom and insight. You can talk about me afterwards, but I invite you just to try it. Try it on. You're trying something different on. This is going to impact your personal relationship. It's going to impact your relationship with your neighbors at work. What am I feeling? Looking at the sheet that says feelings and taking on some of the feelings that you have. Sometimes just putting your feelings on paper helps to calm you down when you're upset and angry. Because now you are, instead of your awareness being out there telling a story, you're bringing it in here and paying attention to yourself. And don't take something very hard, like, don't take something that is, I need a firefighter to put out the fire and I got to call a therapist to come in and debrief you because it's so upsetting to you. Things, it might be too late now, but take something lighter that you can practice with. So after the feelings, you're going to ask yourself the question, I felt this because I needed what? Look at the needs list and identify the needs.
So right now, Dr. Christie has provided an opportunity for folks to write down some of the feelings
Okay.
and needs as part of
That was a quick
their
process. You might
assignment.
still be working on it. I'm curious if you're finished. Any thoughts about what that process was? Did that make any shift for you? Did that give you any clarity? Are y'all doing what I used to do in silent, giving my wife a silent treatment, not talking? Is that what's happening right now? Be vulnerable. Share. No? It was meaningless? I'm saying, did that simple exercise, thank you, brother. Man, I appreciate you. Shake my hand, man. I got one person that's giving me some support here. All right, part two. There's a part two. Do the same thing, but the questions you're asking is about the other person that you're frustrated, angry with, annoyed with. And after this, you can go back to being mad, frustrated, and annoyed with them if you want to. But give yourself permission to imagine and to be curious about what they could have been feeling and what their needs are, and write those down. Is that a question? Oh, you're answering the question to me. No, I want you to write it down. Write it down. Then you could, oh, you're not talking. Oh, yes. So that's a great point. Yes. So I don't want an exact science of how they're feeling. I want you to guess to the best of your ability what might they be feeling, right? Because we do have a sense. They haven't confirmed or deny what we're saying. But for the practice, for this exercise, just imagine what you think they might be feeling. Yes. Reverend Green, this might make you want to preach, man. All right. You might be finished. You might still be working on it. And so my question is to you is, how has this shifted or changed or informed how you were thinking before the exercise? Like, are you thinking the same? Are you angrier now than you were before? Whatever it is, I'm not judging. I'm very curious to know what unfolded for you in this process. Oh, man. Chief, I thought you were going to raise your hand and say something, man. Go ahead. Thank you, sir.
We may not be in tune with what we're actually feeling, and we kind of short circuit sometimes to anger. And so as I was listing the things that I was feeling, I had to go back and forth to that list. And I had a couple of things that I was feeling.
Yes.
But what I felt was angry, but as I went through that list, I'm like, no, I was actually feeling probably a little, of each. Oh, I listed like 4 or 5. I'm not going to give you all the details. But I listed about 4 or 5 different things that would have was actually how I was feeling, but in the moment, I felt anger.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, give it to him. He's trying to run from it. Yeah, give it to him. Yeah. You look at it, he's like hot potatoes. He's like, don't touch it. I want to hear what you have to say, Doc.
Oh, you do? Well, I didn't have that list, so I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
follow, but I did. I'm hoping some of this is on there.
That's fine.
So for part 1, feelings. So it's basically I was worried about it, and mainly because it was a safety thing.
Need for safety.
And then I was just looking for a little cooperation.
Oh, there you go.
And then part 2. Now, I kind of felt like, they weren't worried about like I was.
Right.
And then the other part was, it's just kind of something I have to take care of, and it kind of resigned to the fact that sometimes.
But what was their need for them to behave like it wasn't a big need to them? What was the need? And you didn't have the sheet. Let him borrow your sheet, sir. If somebody's acting like they don't really care, what do you think? Let's give them some support. What do you imagine the need might be?
Oh, for that person?
Yeah, for that person.
for their need would be for, I guess, for me to, let me see on here, scan it real quick. Wow. I don't know if I really,
Well, we're right in the middle of our dialogue here with Dr. Michael
Consideration,
Christie,
ease,
our chaplain.
understanding,
Our chaplain has
Give me
come
for
from
me,
Kentucky.
attention for them.
Or excuse me, he's come from Connecticut. And we're just having an exercise here in which our local law enforcement is participating in. So we're getting ready to go to our commercial break, and we'll see you on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show on Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM Indies, Inspiration Station.
Look at that and come back and
Yeah.
let us know
okay. I ain't
because
off the hook.
because it matter. Thank you, and thank you
I
for
got
being
you. I got you.
vulnerable enough to share. We're bridging. See, we're here talking to police and they talking back, and we all getting along. This is wonderful. Anybody else? Anyone wants to share what that exercise was like for them? I feel like the dentist. No? Nobody wants to share? All right, let's say this. Don't have to share the detail. Was there a difference in the before and after? When you consider the other person's situation and yours, did you feel differently? Did you look at the situation differently? Yes. I mean, that's the, no. You said no? Didn't look at it, felt the same. So it was on a scale of 1 to 5, was the incident a 5 for you? No. Yeah. Yeah. So the practice, that's probably was too intense. We can sit down and talk so I can get in your head a little better and help to navigate it. Typically, when we do this, you'll get a shift. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And so, of course, this is hard to do in the moment, but if we're planning to talk to the police and the police is planning to talk to us and we do something like this, we go to the table differently. I'm not going necessarily blaming them. I'm going saying, here's what I see your needs and concerns are, and here's what our needs and concerns are. How can we have a strategy to meet both these needs, opposed to just your need or my need? But we have to be willing to hear the police as much as the police have to be willing to listen to us. It doesn't always work like that, right? And being working with the department, I see how things get twisted in the media often. That is not the full story, because the media is about hype, right? And good news doesn't sell, so they make everything horrible so you can pay attention. And this is why. Earlier I was talking about the neuroscience of your mind. Your mind pays more attention to what is wrong than what is right, because it wants to keep you safe. It doesn't care about the good times. This is why you remember everything that Johnny did bad and not all the good things that he did, right? Same thing for our spouses. Remember everything they didn't do, but we can't remember the good things that they do. That's because you're wired that way neurobiologically to pay attention to what's not right. Now, we don't have to be that way. You can shift all of that with exercises like mindfulness and meditation and self-awareness, that you start to think more of the positive, bring the positive, so you have balance. You have balance. And so my point to all of that was the media have a tendency to feed us things, and then the community gets hype, not having the full information. That's usually what the case is. I don't know what it is here in terms of the connection with the police, but to have somewhere where you can get the full information before we blow up would probably be helpful. And the challenge is there is historical trauma with the police department. And I do believe some departments are trying to change, but they're trying to change with that long history behind them. And we just remember the history. And we don't even notice what they're doing now, if they're doing something now. We don't know it. So I'll tell you one more story and then I'm going to sit down. I coached track and field. One time, you can't tell now, but I used to be a track star. And I was coaching my son, who I'm very proud of. He's a second-year law student at BU. And my daughter, he was 11 and she was 9. He had finished competing and she was still competing. She was doing the long jump. And I kept on saying, hey, she wasn't jumping well. And I was like, she was too far behind the board. I'm like, you need to back up. You need to run faster. You need to drive your knees up. You need to push your arm up. And my son at 9 turned to me and said, Dad, every now and then we want to hear what we're doing right. And I teared up then. I'm tearing up now. My mouth dropped to the floor. It's like the whole stadium got silent. I felt like God spoke. You know what I'm saying? Out of the mouth of babes. I said, wow, you're so right. And it's our tendency to point out what's wrong and not what's right. With our children, with the officers, with everybody. Can we start to practice noticing, at least telling them what they're doing right before we tell them what they're doing wrong? God bless you. May heaven smile upon you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Christie. That was informative for me. I didn't tell you what I wrote down, but what we're going to do at this time, if you have some questions, please write them down on your 3x5 card and then push them to the center of the aisle, and someone will pick them up and we'll do a Q&A. Yeah, you can stay. Huh? You'll get your mic. Yeah. If you have some questions, while we're waiting on the 3x5 cards and anything that we may have, we want to thank Bob O'Miller. He made this possible. He made sure that we linked up with Dr. Christie. So, Bob, raise your hand, man. We appreciate you. Long-term colleague, and with the Indiana Department of Correction with me, all right? Any other questions? Are there any other questions? Surely you got some questions. Well, I need you to write it down, bro. Yeah, write it down and then send it there. Well, let me form it this way. Or do you have any questions in regard to how we interact with the police and the police interact with the community? How can we utilize this? Or are there any questions concerning that?
Great question.
Does he have any questions? All right, I'm going to try to read some of this stuff. Everybody didn't go to Briar Ripple, so.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, I'm trying to read this. Right, Commander Lewis? Kenny Little, right? All right. So the first question is, what is the best way to communicate what IMPD is doing?
The best way to communicate what IMPD is doing.
Yes.
Is that a question for me?
You know what, that may be a question for, or did you? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Got you. Thank you. So I heard I am PD, so I thought it was something.
I'm sorry.
Different.
Indianapolis Metro Police Department. I'm sorry.
So I was like, I don't know what
You know,
that
we
is.
in corrections is always.
Some acronym.
Yeah, some acronym. Yeah.
I think maybe I don't know what the local infrastructure is to speak totally on that. And so you're asking, how do you speak to and recognize things that are going good in the community? Or are you asking, how do you speak to what the police is doing good in the community? What the police is doing good. Okay. It's like, so here's our police report. This is what we're excited about, we're doing and moving forward to a shared goal. And I'm not sure what the infrastructure is to know who you would talk to about that. So maybe one of y'all could help me with that.
Okay. Anybody want to jump in? We'll jump in, Greg. Yeah, I think obviously we're doing some great things with the community, with the CRCDs and those things already that's in place. And I think those are the times that you can convey those messages to them. I was a member at one time, and it was refreshing to know what was going on. And not only that, when I was working with Commander Lewis, he would kind of tell me some of the things that were going on. So we were not surprised. And so, and a lot of times we don't see anything but flashing lights, but we need to, that dialogue to understand that those flashing lights are for a reason. There's some things going on. All right.
I'll add one item. I think that it's important, like the conversations we're having tonight are so imperative, because you don't want to wait until there's a crisis to start to have a communication. So it has to be, okay, what are we hearing, what's going on, what's happening, all the positive stuff, the CRDCs and other pertinent information. And when that gets shared with the community, then we're not just talking when something horrific or questionable has jumped off, and then we haven't been communicating before, because then relationship ain't there. So it's important that we share prior to.
And I'll say this last, we'll go to the next question. And I, work with Commander Lewis to dispel a lot of the rumors that are going on. Because sometimes somebody, especially in the social media, people are catching stuff and it just may not be true. And you're triggered and people are, going off and then it just may not be true. So oftentimes we have to have that communication with the police department to get what we call ground truth out there. All right, if that makes any sense. All right, we'll go to the next question.
Dr. Curry, before you go, I do know I worked with the Stamford Police Department in Connecticut, and one of the things that they did there that was very successful and very helpful is, I think I shared this with Assistant Chief Holly. They had a training for the clergy, and I think any of the other leaders that wanted to be a part from the black community, black and brown community, where they briefed us on how they hired. They went through the curriculum about how they trained folks, and after that training was completed, to your point, Dr. Curry, whenever there was a high-stake incident, they would call us and say, hey, this is what we know. So clergy had at least some of the information. And of course, you have to believe that, you have to trust that all of that is accurate so we can move forward and build bridge. But it was very helpful. So then we weren't living off the social media screams or what we saw on the news, which was often incomplete. And when human beings don't have all the information, we fill in the blank. And we typically don't fill in the blank with, oh, let's look on the good side. We fill in the blank with our fears. And so, of course, that narrative and story just perpetuate the enemy image and us not communicating. So that's all I want to say.
Well, here's a good one. This is a heavy one, and we want to look at this with the right lenses. But it says, how do you communicate? How do we, or I'm imagining, how does the community communicate with white officers? And I'll just add this, in a black neighborhood. You guys want to take that?
He said, I can't help you.
Well, I think, I think you said something earlier about everybody has to be willing to be a little vulnerable. And we ask our officers, you know, even in the environments they have to go in, that sometimes you gotta let your guard down just so you're approachable for one, and you know, kind of helps de-escalate any tensions. And the same, and you know, I like the fact that you show that works both ways, right? That people in the community understand that, you know, kind of manage some of your biases. You know, if that's something people can understand, and we all have to manage our biases so that we can communicate, open those lines of communication. 'Cause I've seen officers that were reluctant to talk to people in the community, but in certain situations, I saw them very willing, and because I'll grab an officer and take them to a community meeting, and they may not feel comfortable initially, and then once they once they're there, and then they see that, hey, you know, there's a lot of people here that really want to talk to me and really want to get to know me, and I think it helps them. It alleviates some of their biases, and then it's good for the people in the community to see that hey, I can talk to an officer. They're human. So I think it works both ways. Hey, you know, I've seen black officers struggle in black community, right? So it's not always black and white.
Right.
Not always, you know. But I mean, if your bias is that every white person's a bad person, then there's probably going to be some conflict. You know, if your bias is that regardless he's black, whatever they do is okay, that might not always work well, you know. So, I think that I think sometimes we just have to just kind of educate ourselves a little bit, kind of like what you're doing here. I think it's just educating the community a little more on how to de-escalate, how to manage their own biases to get what they want.
Keep the mic, Commander, because this is another question for MPD. There's a couple of questions concerning mental health. We know that there's a lack of mental health resources in the community. What training is required for a police officer to deal with someone with a mental health issue? Is there ongoing training? And just important, what is the measurement of requirements that are in place for checks on police officers' mental health? That's loaded, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, so yeah. I mean, every officer, pretty much all of us are trained on the crisis intervention training. We all pretty much receive that. We also get mental health, what's called mental health training as well. That's always integrated into our annual trainings. So we get it in all of our trainings. We have a training that's called we haven't done it in a while, but it's ICAT. So it kind of teaches us how to listen to others and assess the situation before we act, and also how as like if he's my partner, if he sees I'm going off the rails, to intervene and prevent that from happening, because I could be thinking about something, that a conversation I just had, and I walk into a situation and I'm not acting appropriately. So we're all human, right? So so we get those trainings on a regular basis, and there's also, we're involved in a traumatic event. We have layers of many opportunities. We have our employee assistance program where you can go get help anonymously. And we also have within the department what's called a wellness program. Officers who are trained in counseling officers. We have that. We also have the we have called a peer support team, our post team. They actually respond to critical incidents. They actually come to the scene and kind of coach the officers through the incident and what to expect, and kind of help kind of calm everybody down. So we have that as well. So we have Pro Team, which we just partnered with that organization, We even have a mobile app where an officer, if you're having, and it could be financial problems, it could be marital problems, it could be, hey, I was on a bad incident and I need help. And it's an app on their phone where they can schedule an appointment, walk in for free, and get help. So there's many layers of that. I think it's in a lot of cases we have more help than the average person out there on the street. Sometimes I feel like I wish people in the community had that type of access.
Sure.
So it's out there, but at the same time, you have to be willing to get accept the help.
So I'll add a little bit to that. As far as the training for officers, I don't think that we have enough to deal with a lot of the stuff that we are required to respond to. Officers receive 26 weeks of training in the academy. There's initial 24-hour state requirement training that they have each year. Our department goes above and beyond that to include some of the things that the commander discussed. There are a lot of things that law enforcement is required to respond to because of failures in systems or infrastructures and everything else. And so there are no systems in place to give people who are going through crisis the attention and the assistance that they need 24 hours a day. So it falls on law enforcement to put a Band-Aid on it the best way that they can. And that is tough. It's absolutely tough. And what we have to start figuring out is what is the appropriate mechanism? What is the appropriate system that should be responding to these sorts of incidents? Because I'm telling you, it's not the police. It's not. It's absolutely not. But because there is a lack of, we have to respond. And we are given limited training to deal with the things that we are dealing with on top of the time crunch that we are also in. 26 officers working 78 to 85 square miles doing the best they can. That's not enough. Our officers respond to 760,000 calls for service a year. We need help. So we can add training the best that we can. Our training academy is doing the best they can to get officers out on the street, but there's just not enough. As far as the training for our officers, there are systems in place in certain positions where you get mandatory wellness checks, especially in investigations in some of those areas where you're seeing that trauma constantly, that the situations where you're looking at things involving children, homicide, where you're consistently seeing trauma. There are mandatory wellness checks for them. The amount of trauma that our officers are seeing out there on the street, just on the road, we don't have a system in place for it to be mandatory, but it is open to them if they need it. I've taken advantage of it. We are doing our best to tear down the stigma associated with going and getting help and asking for help. We're doing the best we can. But there are systems via apps, employee assistance, and everything else that the commander just listed off for any officer that feels that they may be going through any sort of trauma related to the job or just personal traumas with finances and everything else, because we're all human. So,
Right. Thank you, Chief.
And on top of all of that, part of the conversation we have earlier is oftentimes officers, just by the nature of their work, is coming into a situation like this, and you're meeting people like this. So when this and this get together, there is no space for oftentimes, because they're on high alert, right? And they're coming into a situation like you said, and God bless you, not having the training to deal with the mental health is unreal in our community and on the rise. And I think we're just now having the language to articulate and identify that this is what's happening. Because Bobo's acting up and wilding out, and we just, why is the cops being booked? But there's serious mental health stuff We're in the Department of Correction. 80% of those folks that come in there got significant mental health issues, right? This thing I'm telling you about, the Fear Center, is absolutely enlarged and triggered just because of a number of things, right? Being black in America, being poor, being a whole lot of stuff. And so they're easily triggered, and I just think just in general in our community, there's a tremendous amount of help, and COVID seems to just escalated all of that in terms of exposing people's mental health dilemma. And parents, nobody wants to admit that their child has mental health because of the stigma, right? So we kind of cover it up, and we allow Johnny to just keep smoking to kind of self-medicate himself until that's not enough. And he acts out. Now the cop is coming in, and let's take the best scenario. A black cop comes in the neighborhood, and has a relationship, but he's also stressed out from all of the stuff that's going on, and his own trauma from what he's seen and not being processed. And let's take the other flip side. A white cop who has no relationship with our community comes in, already comes in with that enemy image, right? He sees a guy. He don't know how to respond to the dude acting up. The community is supporting the mental health person because that's what we think we should do, and there is no good solution right there, right? So everybody's under stress. You can.
I want to get this last card, and then the lady that's writing now, so that we make sure we address these questions. So this is a kind of a multifaceted question. I'm going to ask IMPD to answer part of it. But it talks about mental illness, or why we're locking mentally ill people up, or arresting them, I should say. And it goes on to say, couldn't they do some things like clean up the neighborhood and this and that? I'll just say this: diversions and things of that nature are decided by the courts and probation. IMPD is not. So the question in IMPD is this: how do you decide who you're going to lock up?
So I guess it just depends on each scenario. I mean, the officers have a lot of discretion, but when you're talking about someone who, one, the officer has to identify. I think the question is asking, how do we delineate between someone who has a mental health crisis going on versus someone who is potentially just
Sure.
violating some sort of criminal or crime?
Sure.
You know, that's hard to do sometimes. It's absolutely hard because we can only go off of what we're seeing at the time, right? And there are certainly times where other people are around and they can give us a little more insight as to what is going on. In those cases, we'll do an immediate detention, where based off of 3 prongs, we can take them into custody and they would go to the hospital. Once they go to the hospital, it's out of our hands. That is up to the doctor to look at them, provide whatever services that they're going to give them, but a lot of times, they don't hold them that long. And then a lot of times, the person who originally called because their loved one is going through a crisis is left with nothing to do 6 hours after they get out because there's no available resources that are open 24 hours. So it is a pain point. It's a frustration for our community. I absolutely understand it. Short answer to the question: the officer has to observe what's going on and take everything in and use their discretion to make the best decision that they can with the limited training that we have, right? The limited training that we have. And then after they make the arrest or the ID, that's up to those systems that make those other decisions.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, sometimes the mentally ill person may have a warrant. That's true. All right? And if you have a warrant, they have to arrest them, right? They can't just let them go. So it may be something they did, maybe a failure to report or whatever the case may be. But once that warrant is issued, no matter what state they're in, it's the police officer's duty to arrest that person. Yeah, it may have been, So we don't know. So the last question, because we certainly want to get out of here by 8 o'clock. We want to be mindful of your time. And again, this is not the end. We want to have some more dialogue. But why and how could more cultural trauma and proactive tools be folded into the training and not only IMPD Academy, but also the Indiana State Law Enforcement Academy, ILEA, and officers oftentimes are reacting more than routing, which causes, excuse me? Oh, okay. Okay, so the routing the calls. Okay, IMPD, we'll defer that to you again. And I think he answered a lot of it, that they do get the mental health training, but they don't get enough. Okay, so we want to add that. And so can you speak, one of you two speak to more of the cultural? We talked about the white officer versus the black person or whatever. So is there any cultural training in your academy?
So I think there is. That's not my area,
Sure.
but it's my understanding that there is cultural sensitivity type classes and cultural awareness classes that are given in the academy. I think what we also have to understand, though, is it's 930 plus hours total in the academy. And there's a limited amount of time that they can spend in each block. And so what we also have to do is prioritize what they need. And as the community's expectations on our officers expands, that means that we have to chip away somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying that that's not important, because it absolutely is important, absolutely. But we're just a limited amount of time.
All right. Yeah. So Commander Lewis says it takes about 2 years to get a fully trained, the IRA training and the OJT and all the other things. All right. So they just don't put them out on the street. All right. All right. Again, we got, and because he go to my church, I'm gonna let him in.
So the resources aren't there. Who do we go to for these new ideas of, when you're in a neighborhood, the police are already busy. Wouldn't it be nice to have some officers in a different type of, car that, in the neighborhood, just the scene of the police. We need the police to do their job, but sometimes the people in the neighborhood need somebody to come and get the mental ill people off the block. And it's the same people. They're easy to identify. It's the same people. It's nobody new.
They have rights, though.
Yeah, they do have rights. They do have rights, but it's a lot of tension in the neighborhood. That causes a lot of tension in the neighborhood, between the police and the people that's on, that's in the neighborhood,
So we certainly have MCAT, although there are a limited number of officers within that unit. That is it's a team of an officer and a clinician that go out. They're not in the call log run, or they're not in the run queue, meaning that they're not responding to radio calls. So they have a little bit more time to go and do those sorts of things. I think that the challenge that I keep coming back to in this conversation is we will always show up when we're called. We're going to come and do what we can, but we're limited by the tools that we have available to us. And I think the conversation has to shift away from when and why don't the police come and do this to why don't we have systems in place that specialize in this if this is a need that our community wants, right? I think that's the conversation, because I will tell you, I don't want our cops going to every mental health related type of run. I don't, because we're not equipped to deal with them. We'll do the best that we can. But all we can do is treat the symptoms that we're seeing through our lens as a law enforcement officer.
True.
Right? Because that's what we do. Right. We need help. We need help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so thank you, Chief. We're about done. 2 or 3 minutes, and certainly, is this something that we may want to continue the dialogue with Dr. Christie and his approach tonight? Is that something the community may be wanting to be interested in? Show of hands. Okay. And so we're going to work some things through the back channels to see if we can't go and try to make some things, and perhaps maybe do some training on both sides of the house, maybe to make sure. So we're grateful again. Let's give Dr. Green a hand for being a gracious host. And I think this was
Well, we thank you for joining us tonight on the Concerned Clergy Radio Show. We have just concluded our town hall. We thank our facilitator, Dr. Michael Christie, as well as our moderator, Dr. Richard Curry. We hope everyone has a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Be blessed.
just the start of a new progress that we may bridge the gap. And now, Father, we pray, first of all, for the safety of our police officers. We pray for the safety of this city. And, Father, we pray for all those who are in charge, who are making decisions, that they'll make the decisions that may please you. And now, Father, dismiss us from this place, but never, ever, ever from your presence. It's in the name of Jesus we pray.